Everybody, and we will get underway, and welcome to our meeting today. We don't need to be reminded, I'm sure, that it's being live streamed. Mobile phones, and signal to me if you need a break to take any urgent messages. I will ask Councillor Maxwell if you would open the meeting with the council prayer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship the Mayor. And because we're the first bilingual city in New Zealand, I'll say it in Māori and English. Karakia mo te kauni hera. E te atua kaharawa, ko koe te tohu rangatira, te tohu mātauranga. Manake tia mai mātou o ponanga I tēnei rā, e mahi nei a mātou mahi, mo te paenga o ngā tāngata, o te kauni hera o Rotorua. Tukua mai kia tau te rangi Mārie, ki runga I a mātou I ngā wākatoa. Ko ihu kreiti hoki tō mātou ereki. Āmene. Council prayer. Almighty God, who alone is the leader of all mankind and the fountain of all knowledge, send thy blessing upon us, your servants, this day, as we strive to do all things good, for the betterment of the people of the Rotorua district. May we be tolerant in ourselves at all times, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Kia ora koutou.
Thank you, and we move now to apologies. We have none received, so we don't have to put that motion to the vote. Are there any declarations of interest? There appear to be none. Are there any urgent items not on the agenda? Councillor Bentley, Councillor Gould and Councillor Kent. Would you just like to signal what those items are in terms of urgent items?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it's with regard to a decision we made in confidential a couple of weeks ago, which I think has brought ridicule and derision from the public and the media upon this council, and I think that I would like to move that a letter of apology be sent to Dr. McPherson for involving the police in what was a spurious accusation.
Madam Chair.
No, I'll deal with that. I think that's an issue for wider discussion. You've asked for a letter of apology. I don't accept that. I was in the meeting when everybody present in that meeting agreed with the decision. And that needs to go on the public, I'll speak to that. And that needs to go on the public record. So when we act as a council and agree, that, or a committee of the whole of council, and agree a decision knowing the caution that needed to be taken around any such decision, that was a decision of us all. That was the time and confidential for that to have been raised, and it wasn't raised at that point. Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to bring it to your attention there's misinformation about the cost of the museum, and can we please get it out correctly what the museum is going to cost to repair? Because I've copped it from numerous people.
Okay, that is something that is clearly on the record inaccurately, so I wonder if either yourself, Jeff, or Henry, can you correct, perhaps those around the wider council don't know this discussion, so it would be wise if Henry puts out really just what the facts around the museum funding are.
On out in our news, we've already been sent the question with the confirmation and the misinformation and the clarification and all of the press releases past and up to date on exactly this issue. So it is out there already in the public for anyone to look online and look on our council website.
And I think it is of such public interest because of the misinformation that I'll ask Henry to just give us an update of where we're at, please, with the funding. And thanks for raising it, Councillor Gold.
Through you, Madam Chair, look, it came to our attention yesterday, I think it was, that the Daily Post asked us about rumours or messages they'd heard that the cost of the museum was going to be somewhere around $90 million, I think, and that as a council we were asking government for somewhere around $60 million. What we've come back to you and said last night, and what I'll confirm here, is there has been no change whatsoever to the position we've put in front of council before. Based on the information we've got so far, the estimated cost of the repair of the building is between probably 45 million and 50 million. Those costs will obviously get a bit more precise as we do more work over the detailed design phase. But yeah, at the moment, certainly no change to the position that's been in front of councillors. We're anticipating 45 to 50 million dollars. Council's committed $15 million of that. The Rotorua Energy Charitable Trust, another $10 million, and the Mayor has been having a number of discussions with senior ministers about the central government contribution.
So that was corrected. I don't think it needs any more discussion at all. We needed to clarify that and get that on the public. Yes, Councillor. Steve.
Inadvertently may have led to some misinformation. At a function I was at raising funds for the Rotorua chaplaincy at the Rotorua Hospital, where I was an auctioneer, I was asked to comment on the Rotorua Art and History Museum, and it was me who said that I had heard rumours swirling around the community that the cost had escalated on the Rotorua Museum anywhere upwards of, I've heard 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 million. And I said quite clearly that the community could not afford that level if people are saying that. And I got it confirmed on Monday that the cost was $50 million. So as far as I was concerned, I can scotch those rumours. And the Daily Post got hold of me and I told them exactly that.
Actually, it's always a very wise idea when anybody hears that to come straight to the Chief Executive, and then you get the accurate picture of where we're at if we've forgotten. Right, Councillor Kent.
With your indulgence, Your Worship, in accordance with Section 46A, Paragraph 7A of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act, I wish to raise an item for discussion that is not on the agenda, as I believe it to be of importance to all elected councillors, Lakes, Rural and Te Tato o Tiara board members, as well as all prospective candidates for those positions in the forthcoming elections. The matter concerns the outcome of my having sought and obtained legal advice following recent highly defamatory statements made about me on the IDRR Facebook website. I request that the matter be heard in public session, as it will be of interest to all.
And I'm not sure of that section of the Act, but I do believe, I'll speak to this, I do believe that this issue does need to be in public. People think we go into confidential, which is private. Can I assure the public that if we're talking about one another, it is natural justice for us to go into confidential, as well as the commercial aspects of items that come up on our consideration. But this is an issue that, in my view, has got slightly out of hand, and I'd welcome to hear your views, Councillor Kent, so I will accept it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification, Paragraph 7A just is a matter that is raised for discussion that does not require a decision.
Thank you to the council officers. By accepting your request, I'll also allow Councillor Bentley. Councillor Bentley, are you with me? I'll certainly allow you on the same issue for you to add your perspective as you wish to raise later. So you can do that in public too. So, thank you. Because these items, urgent items are either about decision making or they're also items that require further discussion, and that's why I'm accepting it. Thank you, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Your Worship. With your permission, I'll read from my notes to ensure accuracy and to be as succinct as possible.
And would you be happy for those notes to be public for
I'm very happy to
councillors?
table these afterwards so that there can be no misconceptions.
Thank you.
As some of you are aware, I did not attend the 16th of May SPNF meeting as I was tied up preparing a legal brief and seeking an opinion from a barrister following a highly defamatory article about me on the IDRR Facebook page, written and posted by Ronald McPherson at 1:19 a.m. on the 10th of May 2019. The article, titled "Trust Rob Kent, Yeah Right," questioned my integrity, accused me of duplicity, inferred I had received RMA Commissioner training and appointment to the RMA Policy Committee as payback for having run for Mayor at the 2016 election, and thereby enabling Mayor Chadwick to be re-elected. He claims also that Councillors Bentley and Gould have been debarred from attending RMA Policy Committee meetings. This statement is also untrue. They are welcome to attend RMA Policy Committee meetings at any time, as are all elected members. The posting is obviously aimed at deliberately defaming me in the eyes of Rotorua voters, in the hope of discouraging me from standing again at the coming election, a decision I have yet to make. I remind everyone that I qualified as an RMA Commissioner on the 18th of March 2014, 2.5 years before the 2016 election. I gained Chairing RMA Commissioner certification on the 9th of May 2018, so that the RMA Policy Committee has a backup chair in the event Councillor Hunt is unable to chair for any reason. This was over 1.5 years after the 2016 election. His claims of my having received payback for 2016 election result by way of RMA Commissioner training are therefore very obviously untrue. Minutes of all council and committee meetings record each and every occasion I have voted against many resolutions over the past 3 years, since I always insist on my disagreement with decisions being recorded in the public record. Again, this proves McPherson's claim. His voting record over the last 3 years shows that he is a fully paid up member of the Mayor's Power Block, to be a figment of the fertile imagination. Like Councillor Tapsell, I agree that there comes a time when enough is enough, and when McPherson should be held to account for his deliberate lies, his constant deliberate defamation, and unwarranted personal attacks against anyone he considers to be a threat to his political aspirations. I applaud Councillor Tapsell for standing up to him. You are already 10 times the politician he will ever be. Believing I had a watertight case for defamation against Mr. McPherson and the RDRR organisation, I prepared a legal brief and sought the opinion of a senior barrister who reviewed my case, the laws of defamation and subsequent court precedents. This was my own decision, uninfluenced by anyone else, and would have been at my own expense, nothing to do with council. As it turns out, the barrister provided several hours of his time and his legal opinion to me without charge. I share that legal opinion with you now, since you may all at some time be faced with a similar situation. To pursue a case for defamation in New Zealand, it is necessary for the plaintiff to firstly prove that the statements that have been made against them are untrue. In my case, there is no doubt that I can prove that several of McPherson's statements are untrue. Secondly, it must be proven that the effects of those untrue statements have been to lower the reputation and standing of the plaintiff in the minds of ordinary, unbiased people. And here context is relevant. Most people have become so used to politicians mudslinging against one another that ordinary, unbiased people's reactions would likely be just to dismiss the defamation as politicians being at it again and of little consequence. The courts recognise this, and the tests required to prove defamation being of consequence between politicians is therefore much higher than for other circumstances. It is very difficult to prove that there has been any lasting lowering of reputation and standing of a politician amongst ordinary, unbiased people. Most have probably forgotten the politician's name within a few months. Even if that could be proven, the final hurdle is almost insurmountable. You must be able to quantify and measure the amount of lowering of reputation and standing. Otherwise, the courts have nothing to go on to award compensation, and the case will fail because it is without purpose. You cannot award compensation for damage that cannot be measured. Finally, if all of the above could be successfully proved, you need to have a couple of $100,000 and be prepared to gamble on legal fees and be prepared to wait a year or two for your case to come to court. In short, a case for defamation in the case of politicians is virtually impossible to pursue successfully through the legal system, no matter how obviously defamatory the statements are. Which means, unfortunately, that online bullies, the likes of Macpherson, can hide behind social networking sites and defame to their heart's content without being held to account, and they know it. The only practical redress available is to ensure everyone knows their game and avoid rising to the bait of responding to their posts, which only gives them oxygen for the flames and the publicity they are seeking. I have been defamed by deliberate lies posted publicly by Macpherson on the RDRR site. There is no doubt. My only logical recourse? To state publicly what has happened, which is what I have just done, and let the voters decide the verdict in October. I close with two quick quotations from the Rotorua Daily Post on the 28th of May. The opinion of Kate Hawkesby, titled, "We're Mugs for Giving Facebook Credit." You don't have to be a purist to see Facebook for what it is. It is certainly not a news site. It's a hive of clickbait and BS, and seemingly a platform not remotely interested in decency, honesty, or indeed news. And really, the only mugs are us, for belonging, for giving them clicks, for sharing their crap, for commenting, for giving them credence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kent, and I think it says it all, and you'll have the copy. I will invite Councillor Bentley if you want to speak to what you raised as an urgent item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I said what I said, and there's nothing lot more to add.
Well, I just want to say on this, I too felt that we'd reached the point where enough is enough. And it was myself that took this item to the Committee of the Whole because I was very concerned. And it's now quite interesting to see the strings of others whose reputation has been impugned. I think what we need to look at as councillors, we're elected leaders, we're elected by our community. And if we buy into these allegations that are made and start replying to them as you refer in your written statement, Councillor Kent, we're not showing good leadership in our community. But we have no other way of getting these things out in public. So that opportunity that you raised this morning, I was glad to allow. I do recall as well when I was defamed and my late husband sent a letter to the same individual. and said that we weren't going to proceed with defamation on the basis of cost and public reputation, and we'd allow the electorate to decide. We need to all raise our game. There's a huge discussion around about politicians and being kind to one another, calm heads, and don't accept supporting attacks on individuals. Don't support it. Go the policy. Fight the policy. That's just fine. That is what elections and democracy are all about. I also agree that we ought to look at those that are vulnerable. This has two impacts. It's on those who are vulnerable, regardless of age, gender, or ethnicity. We've got young people in our community that are caught into the social media trap, that are very, very fragile and very exposed, and look at us for leadership. And I think we've got to look at our value system as politicians to make sure that they can't be subjected to schoolyard bullying, such as we've been seen to be subjected to as politicians. We've got to raise the pride in our community, and we've got to inspire others to want to stand for council, in my view. So many that I've said, you'd make a wonderful politician because we should all be looking at intergenerational renewal. They say, no way. No way with what I see you have to put up with. Not just you, all of us. Don't like it, won't go there. Would quite like to sit at the council table, but I'm not going to even consider it. Not even going to countenance it. It's too hard. It's not about setting the platform for what we should be doing. In the end, I want to just say that we're here elected to move our town along with our people, and we're getting caught in distraction. So that there is enough, and I want this to stop. And I just can only urge us all as individuals not to buy into this platform, which can become the politics of hatred, and that is divisive and not good. I admire those that have called this out and brought this to this stage today. So thank you, Councillor Kent, for that. We will consider some of the points in your, it's not a submission, but your statement will be challenged. Councillor Stewart.
Bishop, understanding orders, are we allowed to make comment on the items that are brought up as late items?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Your Worship, I totally agree with you that we are elected by our community as a whole to represent the community. And one of the reasons why I've served here for so long and had the confidence of the community for nearly 33 years is that my values of honesty, service and trust amongst my colleagues and the community has never been brought into question ever. Over the last 3 to 6 years, it has constantly been brought into question, not only of myself and my integrity, and I applaud you, Councillor Kent, for the vehicle that you've used through getting a legal opinion to ascertain what are the actual parameters of defamation and what the tests are in order to prove that. But however, one of the things that we have to do as leaders, Your Worship, and you have led the way in this, in order to raise the game that you talk about, there must be a standard of trust that we must all adhere to or try to reach. But Your Worship, many around this table have bit their tongue, have retained their silence and their dignity by not challenging the leaking that is going on in this place. The leaks that occur when we go into a confidential meeting under the Meetings Act, as advised as chairs, both Medipeka and I, are advised by Una, these are the parameters of going into confidential, and you don't do that willy-nilly. However, some people have taken the advantage during those periods of confidential to raise issues of a personal nature that have commercial or social implications that need to be kept confidential. However, how long, Your Worship, are we going to sit around this table and allow people, even before we leave this meeting, to advise Miss Dr. McPherson and the RDRRs, because there's evidence of it being on the website even before we leave the meeting, of the issues that we have discussed in the strictest confidence. It has got so serious, Your Worship, that I feel for the Chief Executive and senior management who are adverse now to sharing confidential information with us because of the risk of us being held in contempt of court, because of court proceedings with the Environment Court or the District Court or whatever court, or legal positions we are taking over dealing with things that must be discussed in confidential. So my view is that I must have a sound basis to trust my colleagues. That has been severely impinged. I've tried my best to find out who it is. Many of you have rung and sent emails saying you denied. I wasn't at last Thursday's meeting. I didn't even find out about what had happened until the following Tuesday. So it wasn't until the media got hold of me. So not even Councillor Tapsell had rung me to say, oh, did you hear what happened in confidential?
Keep to the issue.
So there is an element of confidence that many of us are adhering to, but others are not. And the others are challenging those values that I hold of honesty, service to the public, and being able to trust those colleagues. So I just leave you with those views.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to add anything? I just remember, Una, that was the implication of the involvement that council officers get involved. Do you want to speak to that at all about emails and that traffic? And we've got to be very clear on that. And yes, certainly, Councillor Kumar and Medipeka. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe there was a leak in the Parliament as well from the Treasury Department this morning that has...
we're talking about our behaviour.
Yeah,
and,
well,
you know,
what
our
I'm trying...
behaviour as politicians is what we're measured on in our community eyes. Did you have something else you wish to add?
No, just was trying to make that point.
Well, it has no relevance to this other than the national conversation about politicians being kind to one another and building a level of trust that is good for New Zealand. Councillor Rotorua.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to thank you, Councillor Kent, for your openness in sharing the actions that you have took to try and protect your good name. Everyone, I think, in this room, whether councillor or anyone, values their good name. The mana that you carry with you wherever you go is really around your name. And there is a brand called Kent, Councillor Kent. I mean, look, Councillor Kent, we may not always agree, but you dance to the beat of your own drum. That is one thing yes. I will credit you with. And I know certainly in earlier times we had our disagreements on some things, but I do think you are a straight shooter. I do think you operate all the time with integrity, and the fact that you took you went and sought an opinion, a legal opinion, as to what you could do to protect your name from being besmirched by Mr. McPherson. All credit to you. But what I take away from this is that, first of all, that age is no indicator of wisdom, and I'm obviously talking about Dr. McPherson. Because really, we are talking about the characteristics of leadership, and a leader does not act in the way that we have seen over a number of years, not just in the last couple of months. A leader does not leak information that is confidential, and that information is what we base our good decision making on. Those are not above the line behaviours of a leader. So unfortunately, there will always be people who have behaviours that I always say are below the line. So there are above the line behaviours and below the line behaviours, and there's little we can actually do around that, because if that's how a person lives their life, it is unfortunate. But most councillors here, we are out and about in the community all the time. People do talk to us. They ask us either what's going on or what's this councillor like and I always am honest and share what I know of the people that I sit around the table with. And so all I can just say is that many of you would have listened to the defamation result that came through for the businessman Blomfield the other week, and also the actor Rush in Australia. and the difficulty that they had. But certainly the businessman, what was his name, Blomfield, and the toll that took, first of all, on his family, even before he took a defamation action. But there they could definitely prove the impact on his business, on the family life and finances and everything. So that was very, very sad. But we do have a society now in New Zealand and around the world where people are getting quite hateful towards each other. And that's where exemplary leadership now has to come to the fore. And that exemplary leadership is not shown by those with below-the-line behaviours. It's shown by those of us who sit around the table and in every council room in this country and in the beehive who just say, we have the interests of our citizens at the heart, and then we'll do what we can to ensure that we make the best decisions. And for as long as I sit here with colleagues who have that in mind and put our citizens at the centre of our decision making, then I don't think we can go wrong. But it isn't a good environment, but there's little I think that we can do about it other than show by example ourselves. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Maxwell and then Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I too want to thank Councillor Kent for, at his own cost, and providing us with a legal opinion. It's good that you are able to get it at no cost to yourself, because I'm sure it would have cost plenty to have something like this done. And that just helps the thought process that we're all going through. And that confidential meeting we had last week, I hope, and we even get criticised for going into confidential by the same group. But I hope in the discussions we're having today that Councillor Bentley and Councillor Kuma will repeat what they said in confidential, which heartened me about how they felt about the issue. Because to attack both Councillor Kent, who's experienced enough to be able to take that and handle it well, but to me I was appalled by the attack on the youngest councillor in New Zealand. She's a niece, and during that confidential meeting I said that, and I know her dad, he would have gone around and punched the person in the nose. And I might have been...
We hope not.
Well, we were in confidential because I couldn't go and say to him, go and do that, boy. But knowing him, he would have. But thinking of Councillor Tapsell, it is hard for young people to come onto something like this when they know, and you pick up the Daily Post on Monday's paper, the publicity, huge photos and everything. You know, that would put a lot of young people off trying. I'm going to try from now on not to even mention his name. I'm going to be like Prime Minister Jacinda, never mention the person's name. I'll just say RM maybe or something else. But because he doesn't care, the publicity is more important than sometimes the issue. I mean, I remember on council here, we had a wonderful man, Mitamohi. He was a councillor in his time, but he only stood for one term. He didn't want to be here. It wasn't his nature. And he was never attacked, but he didn't like seeing other people being hurt. And he spoke to, Mitamohi, and he used to speak to me and they say to me, oh, I don't like the way they attack one another, but, you know, and he was a professional wrestler back in his time. He would have been able to handle himself.
We should sort of get this to the point of...
Yeah, I know, but I wanted to just express some of the things I've been feeling inside about how appalled I've been. So, all I can say is I think we did the right thing at the time in confidential, and the other one is, sorry to have to say this again, but even Councillor Tapsell was attacked by social media for bringing this up. She didn't. She sat there and listened, and it was we as councillors who did what we did. Thank you,
Madam Mayor, for that.
Councillor Hunt?
Oh, thank you, and I'd just like to really congratulate my colleagues, Councillor Tapsell and Councillor Kent, for the way they have handled this issue. It is in the public, everybody knows everything. I guess for me, what I find ironic, and it would be laughable if it wasn't so tragic, is that someone has suggested a letter of apology be sent. Bullies are very good at flinging mud or flinging any accusations, and you know they're a bully when they complain and whimper when someone has the audacity to name the behaviour, to call them out for that behaviour, to actually question whether that behaviour is honourable, respectful, and should be tolerated. And the mere mention that we find that behaviour absolutely inappropriate and ongoing and an attack on all of the members, actually it reflects on our whole community. And the one time we in confidential, we discussed it, that here he is whimpering and crying and his supporters for an apology. So that to me shows the true colour, not only of the group. I'm speaking, Councillor Bentley.
And I'm making a point of order.
Well, you can just wait until I have finished. I have finished. My opinion is that no letter of apology should even be discussed. If he's going to throw it and expect us to suck it up, then he can jolly well suck it up himself. Thank you.
Right. Do the councillors that spoke in confidential wish to make a statement about what you did say then? Because we brought this out in the open. I see Councillor Kumar's left the room. Councillor Bentley, do you wish to say anything?
Yes, and I reiterate what I said to the meeting and to Councillor Tapsell, was that I did not agree with the posting, I did not support the posting, and I was embarrassed that it went on the RDRR site. And in saying that, I did apologise on behalf of myself, and I'm sure Raj would agree with me, but to now say that I'm whimpering and wallowing in self-pity and so forth, Councillor Hunt, I think you're getting a bit strident.
Well, I haven't heard anything strident here this morning, and Councillor Donaldson, would you like to conclude?
Thank you, Worship. I also want to acknowledge Councillor Kent. One doesn't toy with the truth in respect of Councillor Kent lightly, as I hope people have learned. So I acknowledge his comments today. I also just wanted to comment on Councillor Sturt's comments around getting to the bottom of breaches of confidence. You know, I worked in a government department before I got onto council, and there were quite often sensitive information leaked from that organisation as well. So I think you're wasting your time, actually, in many cases, trying to get to where a leak may have come from. And I think it's a matter of us having trust in each other, that confidence is retained on sensitive issues, because it's only damaging to this organisation and to the community we represent in the long run. Yeah, clickbait, we shouldn't give it oxygen, because then the author has got what they want, which is lifted their profile. But I just want to comment on the attacks made on, directed at Councillor Tapsell for this matter being referred to the police. And I supported that because it's not so much that it was hate speech against Councillor Tapsell, which was a police matter. It's what could have been incited from that. And we only have to look at James Shaw walking into a knuckle sandwich because of inflammatory stuff about Green Party. And so it's the comments that flow on from such a post that incite I guess the less stable people in a community, and we've seen that on streams. So I think it was perfectly valid that the matter was referred to the police, not necessarily to investigate a prosecution against anyone, but to be aware of the position that our elected members have been put in by having inflammatory stuff written about them on social media. So finally, I do want to address the call for an apology. I've had calls for an apology levelled to me by the same author for calling him on a point of order. And the contention he made to the media was that I called the point of order before he'd actually made the statement. The subject of the point of order, I have the emails and the live stream to show that that's not the case. So I just think, and this is the last time I'll talk about him publicly, is that I think it's appropriate that he tried to portray Councillor Tapsell as a fairy tale character, because that's the land he lives in, and he is always making his own fairy tales up, sadly.
Thank you. Councillor Tapsell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And firstly, I just want to thank all my fellow colleagues and yourself, Madam Mayor, for the support that you have shown me throughout this whole process. As politicians, we are susceptible to personal attacks, and we take them on with dignity, actually, and we have for a very long time. But after 5 years of this, you're right, it was enough. And the reason why I made the decision that it was enough as well is because of the reflection that it gives on the young people within our community, on the families within our community, and the people that we are trying to attract here to live, to learn, and to invest and continue growing this beautiful city, which is ours. And this city has been established from the very start on the ideahood of partnership, and we've brought that here, and we've brought so much positive progress. So to have to take such negative personal attacks from a group that has quite actively been against that wonderful progress that we have brought has been quite disheartening. But I tell you what, it has been challenging at times. Many of you will be aware that this went national as well. I was having to defend myself, my name, my reputation at a national level on Sean Plunkett's show, on the Magic Talkback, on Stuff website, getting criticised by party leaders from central government, and it has just been absolutely ridiculous, actually. But looking back on it in hindsight, I still have no regrets with how we handled the behaviour, because at the end of the day, it is about the risk of harm that it causes. We've seen that with MPs, and we see it within our communities, and some of the very serious impacts that mental health is having on our most vulnerable, as you mentioned, Madam Mayor, our young people. And you know, I've wondered whether to bring it up, but what was very heavy on my mind when we made this decision was that we had 3 young people within our community end their lives last week.
Yeah.
And for young people in our community to be making such decisions because of the horrible nature that some people can bring out, for me, that was enough. For us as leaders, we have to stand up to this unacceptable behaviour. So if anyone is going to be making such strong statements of a nature that is going to cause people to consider that and to bring hurt and harm to not only themselves but their friends and families, then absolutely, I think we've made the right decision. We have seen the risk and the threats, and the most ironic thing about all of this was standing up to the unacceptable behaviour and the bullying actually opened myself up to even more hate messages and threats that came from around the country. And in saying that, I want to acknowledge our community and how much they have surrounded me and our colleagues with the love and support, and actually the kia kaha, keep going message that keeps coming through. So although we only see the negative, what we don't see is the many people who are supporting us, because they know that if they also jump into the conversation and say, actually it's a good thing, well, their comments are going to either get deleted or they'll be personally attacked as well. So as leaders, it is up to us to start making those hard calls and say enough is enough. And that's what we've done. And I just want to thank you all once again, a heartfelt thank you to my colleagues, the Mayor and our community for standing behind us and supporting us when we've had to make the hard decisions that are of a personal nature. Thank you.
Going to draw it to a close. As a politician that's been around for a long time, you fight the issue, never the person. Let's keep it high. There's 20 weeks to go. Let's fight the issues and let our record speak for itself. And I will close it there, but also there will be no letter of apology from the discussion that I've heard around the table today. Right, we move on to the confirmation of council minutes of the 2nd of May. Do I have a mover? Thank you, a seconder. Councillor Hunt. Are there any corrections? Councillor Gould.
Madam Chair, on page 7, I was one of 3 councillors who indicated an early departure. The reason why I was going to the funeral of the late Mr Douglas. You've got his apologies down as councillors Maxwell, Gould, Rakawa, Tate were early departure, but in fact we didn't leave early. We stayed for the whole of the meeting.
Oh, we can get that amended. We'll just delete it. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Now we move to recommendations from other committees, page 14. Do I have a mover and a seconder that the report recommendations from other committees be received? Councillor Donaldson, seconded Councillor Gould. Mover, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. A mover and a seconder that the following recommendations from the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee held on the 16th of May be adopted. Moved Councillor Sturt. Sorry? Yes? We'll take them individually. This is just to accept them. Seconded Councillor Tapsell. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. We move to recommendation 1. Designation of shared paths and shared zones on Rotorua Transport Network. So I will open that recommendation. You'll move it, thank you. Moved Councillor Donaldson, seconded Councillor Gould. Yes, question?
I wasn't at the meeting, but can I just have it clarified? This is an extension of the current policy that sees the growth of and the widening of the footpath shared cycleways throughout the district and linking things with the Whakarewarewa forest and through to Nongataha. Is that an extension of that policy, please?
Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Rakawate? Oh, the next one. All right. So I'm... Yes, it is.
Marana, through you, Madam Chair. As you said at the presentation, we do have a walking and cycling strategy, which the Council agreed. We have an amendment to the bylaw that gives definition to what a shared walking space and what a shared zone is. This report identifies the areas where, as we develop our walking cycling network, we will assign it a shared walking and cycling definition in order to make sure that we give maximum advantage to our extension strategy, our network strategy, as you described, Councillor State. As we progress it, the bylaw and the strategy and these definitions give us a tool to assign a definition on these areas, to regulate it, to make sure they are safe and they are used as per the intended purpose.
And the implications of their reintroduction for local government. That government agree that the incoming council post the 2019 local government elections considers this report as part of the elected members' induction and works an assessment of actions that covers the reintroduction of the well-beings and how council can work with the government on the issues and challenges facing the district. Do I have a mover? Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Kent. Is there any discussion? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I wasn't at last week's this meeting earlier in the month, so but I'm pleased if you wouldn't mind. I wouldn't just like to comment on that. First of all, it's really important for New Zealanders and for Council to understand, and I'm so pleased that we've got the 4 wellbeings back in, and that the government has decided that the social, economic, environmental and cultural issues that confront councils are just as important as actually any other business that we do. I mean, we can survive as a city and as a district, but we really need to thrive. And so it isn't just about our economic growth. It is about actually how well our citizens are doing in terms of housing, education, connectedness in the community and things like that. So, and I did watch on, I watched the live stream of the meeting, and I know there is some angst, perhaps by a number of councillors, that, you know, it could be, it's going to come at a cost to this council. Actually, it already comes at a cost when we don't address these issues. And we have significant sectors of our community who have been parked up on the sideline for so long, who actually don't see a place for themselves and believe that what's happening in Rotorua is not for them because they're not connected in, they're not part of what's happening in Rotorua. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be forking out money, but what we can do is we can advocate for our citizens with central government. We can certainly advocate for the government departments and agencies who are active in Rotorua. We can share our planning knowledge with them. We've got information on where our city is heading that's vital that we share with government agencies, and also we can co-design perhaps and improve some of their service delivery. So there's a whole raft of areas that we can assist central government with, and ultimately will be better for our citizens as well. But if we don't head off some of these things locally, then believe me, as taxpayers, we pick up the cost at that end. And so there's much that we can do. And I'm sorry that we haven't done it over many years, because I don't believe we'd have some of the statistics that we have in Rotorua now had we been more proactive in that. However, we can't lament that. What we've got to do is we've got to act now and grow what we can now. So I just want to support this so wholeheartedly, Your Worship. Thank you.
And I wasn't there at the time of this paper, but I do commend council officers for bringing this, because there are co-design projects that we're involved in now, even without the four well-beings being introduced. And if I can just go through the family violence and the summer safety campaign, the Housing First initiative, and also youth. And one of the issues that we should be really concerned of, those of our young people not in employment, education or training, hasn't budged for 9 years. And so now we can get in and co-design what we can do about that. And so those are the sorts of things that actually as a council we were doing anyway. But we weren't doing enough, and we weren't getting the support of central government to get into design that's the right solution for us locally. So I totally support this. Appears to be nobody else wishing to add, so I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Now we move to the next, which is the proposed remits to Local Government New Zealand's 2019 Annual General Meeting. To remind those councillors, this is so that we're ready when we go as delegates to the Local Government Conference next month, how to vote accordingly at the AGM. So the proposed remits to Local Government 2019 Annual General Meeting, there were two, one on road safety and the other on the guidelines regulating the building industry, or the beauty industry. You'll move.
I'll second.
You'll second, thank you. Is there any discussion? Piers? Yeah. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. And now we move to the resolution to go into public excluded.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, if I may just give a heads up to my colleagues, please, if I may just take a moment. Thank you. I just want to give you all a heads up before it comes out in the public that I won't be standing for election this coming October. And the reasons are simply that in the last 6 years, while we've had Mayor Steve at the helm and the change in direction in this council, I've been able to do all of those things that I wanted to do and that I campaigned on in 2007. And they were community safety initiatives, shared cycle paths, art in public places with sculpture walks and art all over our city, environmental issues, which was curbside recycling and lake water quality improvements, and finally the establishment of a plan for our lakefront. So when I look back on my 2007 platform that I stood on and the vision I had for the city, I've pretty much done what I wanted to do, and I like to be in the startup. I like creating new stuff, and I've been involved in some of the most amazing projects that this forward-looking council has had the courage to get across the line, and not all of them have worked, and they never do, but in fact the fear of innovation stifles all innovation, and we move from paralysis of indecision to actually into decision making. This is a transformational council, and I've been incredibly proud to be involved in it. I've done my bit, and it's time for me to step down, and it's time for someone else to step up, and this will allow, at least I'm hoping, this will stimulate someone who hasn't put their hand forward, who hasn't considered standing for council, to think, well, actually there is one seat that is vacant now, and I'm hoping someone with a vision and a passion for our city. Now, I know I'll get an opportunity to thank people more formally at my last council meeting, I will enjoy that opportunity immensely, and it'll give me a chance to thank the voters who have supported me over the last 12 years. But I wanted to give you a heads up. I wanted you to know first that this is the right decision for me, and I'm looking forward to some new challenges ahead and some new startups, because I tend to, my past before on council was my first controversial project, which was the Arts Village, then it was Eat Street, then it was all the other ones which you know about, which I will go in detail at my final meeting, but that's the area I'm most comfortable in, and now things are up and running and these projects are in the plan and they have the backing of the community, then it's time for me to move over and let someone else have a turn. So thank you for that opportunity, Madam Mayor, to let me just give you a heads up so you heard it from me first.
Well, Councillor Hunt, that I'm sure Councillor Donaldson wants to say something, and then I'll conclude. But well done for a decision, I want to say, and it's never made lightly, those decisions. But we'll have the legacy discussion at the last meeting of council. Thank you for the early heads up. I must say that I was quite shocked when I heard, but I understand. We've got to get a life, and you've got to have a balance, and that's everyone around this table. And then you've got to look and say, have I finished what I intended to do? And you've just outlined that. Well done. And the community's really enjoyed your energy and your passion, but it's not your last day, so I'm not saying any more. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Worship. As I guess the only one around the table, I think, who came in at the same election in 2007 as Councillor Hunt, and like her was posted to the Rotorua Lakes Community Board, which had only just been established. I just want to acknowledge the contribution that Councillor Hunt's made, and I know it's probably a bit premature, but it seems like we've been prematurely pushed into election mode as a council, and so I would simply say to Councillor Hunt, huge admiration for her intelligence and her contribution, but her job's not done. She's still a councillor until the 12th of October, and so carry on the good work, and I've absolutely enjoyed the contribution that she has made. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. I'm sure there'll be something else that will really energise you, and we know your contribution on a professional level. So we'll save that for the last meeting, I think, but it's signalling it early is the right thing to do, as you say, to allow others to consider, even the discussion we had earlier, to consider to stand and then look back and say, I can say I did this, this and this. Wonderful. Now I need a resolution to go into confidential for the following items. Approve an extension of contract value for streetlight maintenance and agree to the modified sum for Rotorua sewage reticulation construction. And the reasons for this are always around to prevent the use of information for improper gain or advantage, commercial sensitivity, and to enable commercial industrial negotiations. Have a mover? Second, Councillor Hunt. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Carried. And we'll have a 5-minute break.